the most important thing for mowing your lawn is to make sure that you have a good piece of equipment and that you then mow your lawn on the right schedule. And so most people will ask me right off the bat, well, how high should I mow my lawn? The issue with that question is it's determined by how often you want to mow. If you want a shorter lawn, let's say you have kids who like to play or you enjoy games like bocce on your yard, you might want a slightly shorter yard. And that means you might want to mow at 1.5 inches or 2 inches. So 4 centimeters, 5 centimeters. If that's your goal, well, then you have to mow more often. You're going to have to mow maybe twice a week for the below 2 inches, and at 2 inches, at least once a week. And if you don't want to mow very often at all, you could probably get away with mowing every 10 days if you're mowing at 3 inches. Now, what are you going to mow with? That piece of equipment. And, it's always great to have an electric mower so you can increase the environmental benefit of your lawn by not using a gas power mower. But one of the issues with electric mowers is sometimes they don't lift the grass very well and you don't get a very good cut, especially if you're at a higher height of cut. So what I say is you're going to have your mower, and the biggest thing you can do to make sure your mower is functioning properly is to sharpen the blade. So when you sharpen your blade, you got to take it to a service provider, and you should sharpen your blade at least once a year at a minimum. For those of you with larger lawns that you mow a lot, you're going to have to sharpen it maybe twice a year to maintain a nice clean cut. And one of the best times to look at your mower and see if it's cutting right is you mow your lawn in June and then look at the leaf blades. Are the leaf blades cleanly cut, or do they develop a white edge on the top? And that will tell you your mower is probably a little dull and it needs to be sharpened. Those work a couple ways. One's they just spin and then they cut through force, and then others that have a bed knife. And one of the issues with those is you can't mow very high with those. Those cut best under 1.5 inches, which is lower than I recommend anyone mow their lawn, unless they're maintaining a different type of grass than most of us have. So for those people who are really into their lawns, they might be able to use those, but they get very hard to use at the higher end. The other issue with those mowers is we now recommend that you mulch your clippings back into the lawn. We don't want you gathering your clippings. Well, when you use those, they don't cut it up as much and they don't fall on the lawn as much. So your mower, there's a couple types of mowers, but most of them sold today are mulching mowers. And they'll rotate like this, and they actually have a lift that pulls the blades up, and it cuts them up multiple times, allowing them to fall back down into the canopy so you don't have to collect them. These mowers will also have a bag if you want to bag them, but we don't recommend. We recommend you turn that bag off and use the mulching function in there. That will provide nutrients to your turf and all that issue, all those wonderful things. One of the issues that you might run into with the mulching mower is if you let your grass get too high and then you cut it off and you have grass laying. At that point, if there's blades of grass left on the lawn, there's a couple things you can do. A, you can go back over it with your mower. B, you can lightly rake it, but now what are you going to do with those leaves? The city no longer wants to collect those in the compost because they add too much bulk to the composting procedures that we use here in Guelph and in other places. So I recommend you take those clippings and you line your bedding with them. Your gardens, you work it into your garden soil and let it break down there and provide nutrients to your garden. You should start mowing your grass when you see growth above your desired height of cut. So right now, I am mowing my backyard, but not my front yard. I have two different grass species. I have two different fertility levels, and my backyard is growing. I want to mow my backyard at 5 centimeters, which is 2 inches, and it's getting to almost be 3 inches, so it's time to mow. So the rule we use is the 1/3 rule throughout the season. That's why if you mow higher, you get to mow less often because you get 1.5 inches of growth instead of 1 inch of growth between mowings. So you actually get more time between mowings. So if you're planning on mowing your lawn at 2 inches, mow your lawn at 3 inches. And so when your lawn gets to 3 inches, that's when you should mow it the first time in the spring. And that's when you should mow it from that point forward. Now, sometimes you're away and your grass gets way too tall. If I don't get out to my lawn soon, it's going to be close to 4 inches tall. What am I going to do? Instead of mowing it at the height I want to mow it at, I'm going to raise the height up and I'm going to mow it at that height. And then I'll lower it a little bit the next week and lower it a little bit more the next week until I get to my desired height of cut.